welcome back to Movie Recap Zone. Today, I'm going to explain a romantic comedy film released in 2009 titled The Ugly Truth. Spoilers ahead, watch out and enjoy. The movie begins with Abby, our main protagonist of the film. She runs a morning show as a producer. Despite her abilities, the show's viewership are dropping owing to its substance. When Stuart, her boss, summons her to his office to discuss ways to improve the performance. He then tells her that if the ratings don't improve, he'll have to discontinue the show, placing even more pressure on Abby. Abby and her assistant, Joy, are in the restroom talking about Stuart's concerns when she tells her that she performed a background check on her date for tonight. Joy insists on her showing up, despite her desire to stay at home and brainstorm some ideas. Abby surprises her date later at a restaurant by telling him that she has done a background check on him. She then gives him a questionnaire to discover if he is the right man for her. The date appears to end with her going home alone. Abby eventually comes across a TV show whose host is spewing misogynistic garbage. She decides to call the show herself to give him a piece of her mind out of rage. However, he tells her that she will be alone for the rest of her life because she is ugly, and he hangs up on her. Abby arrives at work the next day to learn that Stuart has signed the guy from the TV show, Mike, for a 2-minute segment on their morning show to pull up their views. Despite the fact that the whole crew is opposed to his choice, he has Mike waiting outside the room. She doesn't tell him, however, that she is the anonymous caller on his TV show. Following that, Mike enters Abby's office, only for her to reveal that she is the anonymous caller. He does, however, say that she isn't as hideous as he expected. When Abby meets with her reporters, Georgia and Larry, she gives them a motivational speech in order to motivate them to make Mike seem bad on TV. Georgia and Larry try to get under Mike's skin after a while, but Mike succeeds to make Larry feel emasculated by Georgia's success, who turns out to be his wife. Mike manipulates him despite his best efforts to remain supportive of her. Finally, he persuades Larry to kiss Georgia on national television. Meanwhile, Abby is yelling for the broadcast to be paused for commercials. Stuart and Joy locate Abby hiding in a closet a few hours later, and he informs her that Mike's part received 93% positive response. As a result, Stuart informs her that he will keep his section on the show, and that their contract will be renewed as a result of him. Mike, on the other hand, is rejoicing with his sister and nephew, Jonah, for getting on a network. Abby's cat runs out the window later that night to climb a tree. Abby unintentionally snoops on her neighbor when he is showering when she climbs it after him. Unfortunately, the limb on which she is standing snaps, trapping her in the tree. So, when her neighbor hears her scream, he rushes outdoors to save her. Colin, her next-door neighbor, then fixes her sprained ankle. Her cat, much to her surprise, takes a shine to him. He then offers her his phone number so she can contact him. Abby tells Joy about how she met Colin the next day, but she's worried she'll screw it up like her prior dates. Mike is getting ready for his segments when she notices her, despite her best efforts to ensure that he does not say anything objectionable. He informs her that it is her responsibility to keep him pleased. Abby receives the latest report about Mike's ratings the next day, and to her surprise, it's all positive. Mike is convinced that Abby is bluffing when she claims to have met the perfect guy. As a result, she dials Colin's office phone number to ask him out on a date. Mike, however, grabs the phone from her and hangs up on him just as he's about to blow her off. Abby, irritated, asks him why he did it, to which Mike responds that if she wants to work with him, she must follow his directions. He then informs her that if she refrains from calling Colin first, he will call her back. Mike advises her what to say on the phone call when he calls her back. Finally, he strikes a deal with her, promising that if he can help her win over Colin, she will let him continue on the show. Abby reluctantly agrees. Mike gets down with Abby later to give her advice on how to make Colin fall in love with her. He then takes her shopping, where he purchases provocative clothing and hair extensions for her. Following that, Mike visits Abby's home to witness the finished product. He tells her she looks wonderful, astounded. Colin unexpectedly knocks on her door. As a result, Mike is forced to hide behind a couch. Abby evidently plays hard to get, which leads to a date with Colin to see a baseball game. Mike, on the other hand, is amazed by Abby's rapid learning. Abby and Colin meet up at the game a few days later, with Mike going undercover in the throng. He tries to educate her over an earphone, but she mixes it up so badly that when she spills her drink on him, it appears that she is giving him a hand exercise. Fortunately, Colin kisses her before leaving when he drives her home. After he enters his house, she rushes over to Mike, who is hidden in the bushes, to thank him for his assistance. Nonetheless, Mike seemed disappointed that his strategy worked. Abby notices Jonah walking into the set the next day. When she tries to stop him, he tells her that he is familiar with him. By the way he speaks to him, she deduces that they are related. Abby informs Mike, nervously, that Colin had asked her out again. As a result, Mike tries to prepare her for a night of pleasure with Colin. He sends her vibrating underwear at night. She puts it on before going out. Unfortunately, Mike and Stuart surprise her by showing up at her place and inviting her to dinner. They also decide to invite Colin to the dinner party. Abby loses the remote to her panties in the restaurant, and it falls into the hands of a child. She chooses to use the restroom while eating. Stuart, on the other hand, stops her so they may discuss their new campaign. She then waits, but the boy from earlier turns on the vibrator while they're talking, and Abby gets turned on, but tries to hide it from Mike and Stuart. After dinner, Mike informs Abby that Colin really loves her, which she is overjoyed about. Mike, on the other hand, isn't fond of the notion. Abby and Colin begin dating a week later. Everything appears to be going swimmingly, except for Mike, who is becoming aware that he has feelings for her. Mike and Abby meet at a pub one day to talk about their new segments. He does observe, though, how much more confident Abby has become since she began dating Colin. He then discovers that Abby intends to sleep with him over the weekend. Despite his phony enthusiasm, Mike appears to regret assisting her. The next day at work, Abby hears that Mike has been offered a job at a different company with double the income. As a result, Stuart insists that she accompany Mike to the late-night program. Despite her plans with Colin, Stuart emphasizes the significance of making sure Mike doesn't come across as a jerk. Abby and Mike fly out the next day, and they may practice his replies to see how he'll speak to the public. The host is aware that Mike isn't as cold-hearted as he appears, despite his ability to carry on with his jokes. Mike takes Abby out to celebrate his TV debut later that night. He unexpectedly invites Abby to dance with him. He tries to kiss her while they're dancing. As a result, she states that they have a flight the next day and that they should leave early. As they say their goodbyes in the elevator, Mike finally gets to kiss her, which confuses Abby because she thought she despised him. Suddenly, she receives a knock on her door, and Colin greets her with champagne. She then tries to mask her dismay, as she had expected Mike to be there. Mike, on the other hand, is pacing outside Abby's door. Colin answers the door for him when he tries to declare his feelings to her. He appears to make up a story about how he got there and then flees. Regrettably, he advises her not to jeopardize her friendship with Colin, whom she fought so hard to win over. Abby returns to Colin in her room, where she totally admits to faking her personality to attract him. Finally, she breaks up with him, leaving him flabbergasted. The next morning, Abby arrives at work to learn that Mike has resigned and accepted a job offer from one of their competitors. As a result, Abby must figure out how to find a successor for Mike. Meanwhile, Mike comes across his old TV show, which is now hosted by a different person. Abby is surprised to learn that they're filming in the same park. Abby takes the lead of the show and talks to Mike through the camera and tells him that he's a loser who couldn't even confess to his lover. Mike becomes enraged and resolves to go over there personally to lash out at Abby for preferring Colin over him. Mike tries to leap out of the hot air balloon after the segment is ended. They have no idea that they are still being recorded. He chooses to tell her that he loves her when she informs him she broke up with Colin. Finally, Abby kisses him, and the film comes close to a happy ending. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hit that like button if you did, subscribe if you're new, and at last, I would say stay well, stay safe, thanks.